Just a few hours ago, the truce between Israel and the Hamas terrorists around Gaza was extended for a seventh day. Details yet aren't clear, but reports are that it's part of the original deal. For every 10 Jewish hostages that Hamas releases, Hamas will get 24 hours of truce and 30 Palestinian prisoners freed by Israel. Here are live pictures from Gaza. As you can see so far, no bombing or anything. It's peaceful, but Israel is adamant as soon as Hamas stops producing more hostages, the war resumes. Hamas must be destroyed. Joining me is Jack Keane, retired four-star general, serves as Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army, is now Chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General Keane, thank you so much for your time. The end of the truce, what do you expect to see?
Well, frankly, when the truce ends, I really expect to see the IDF get back into campaign operations. They were not completely cleared the northern Gaza area, but they had certainly did most of it. And frankly, Hamas's leaders and most of their fighters have moved to the south. So our audience really has to understand we are still, quite frankly, despite the weeks-long campaigns that have been conducted, we're in early stages of this campaign because the majority of the Hamas fighters are in the south and central Gaza, and that's the reality of it. So much of the fighting that Israel has to do, if their objective remains to dismantle Hamas, is largely in front of them. And we estimate that there's somewhere around 20,000 fighters that are left. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 5,000 to 7,000 that have been killed. These are estimates only. Hamas doesn't reveal any of their casualties. These largely come from what the IDF thinks is happening. But I think they're somewhat in the ballpark, but it gives you a sense there's a lot to be done to accomplish the objective of dismantling this network in terms of its military capability and eventually having it no longer govern Gaza.
Have you got any doubt about the ultimate objective of the IDF, that it has to keep going, that it has to destroy Hamas?
In my mind, that's absolutely correct. Let's just make a couple of assumptions here. Let's assume that there was a permanent ceasefire in the next week or so. If that occurred, Hamas would absolutely declare victory. Why is that? Their regime is intact, their leaders are intact, most of their fighters are intact, and they dealt a very lethal blow to Israel in terms of the number of people they killed, how they killed them, the butchery, the savagery, and what have they accomplished? Worldwide international condemnation of Israel, much more so than anything we've seen before. Second, considerably more geopolitical isolation of Israel internationally. And third, weakened the government of Israel because it displayed that it could not protect its own people. So Hamas would declare victory. The international community would largely agree with them.
Yes, I think Israel has to keep going because if it can't be loved, and it's not getting the love from the left in particular, at least it should be feared. So it needs to keep going. Otherwise, Project Israel is in huge danger. With the hostages, though, there's been a release of a number of hostages, right? But probably, well, it's less than half. What is this war telling terrorists everywhere? To me, it seems to be taking hostages works because it's bought Hamas at least a week of truce now when it can, gather itself and prepare its defences. But what do you make of it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen Iran take hostages for some time, and it's always during peacetime competition, not during direct conflict, certainly. But taking wholesale hostages like this during conflict and actually in the early stages of it that Hamas has done, I think it has Iran's fingerprints all over it because Hamas has never really taken any casualties of consequence in the past, and it has had a huge payoff for them. It got them a temporary ceasefire, if that's the case. And the reality is they've been able to refit, rearm, and relocate as a result of that. And as you indicated, less than half of the hostages are only in the hands of Israel. The majority of them are still in the hands of Hamas and the other militant organizations. Look at Andrew. Hamas is going to hold on to a tranche of hostages towards the end. Why? Because they want to preserve their regime. They want to preserve their leaders, and they want to negotiate Israel leaving Gaza to get those hostages back, so that regime will be preserved. Now, whether that is negotiated successfully or not remains to be seen. But believe me, that Hamas will put that on the table, because that will still give them a strategic victory if Israel walks out of there and the regime is left intact.
Yeah, I said less than half. Just in calculating, it's probably about less than a third. 2/3 of the hostages are still in their hands. Just finally, General, you were suggesting, that Israel's lost a lot, diplomatically isolated, or increasingly. Can I just put to you a counter proposition? There were concerns that the Hamas terrorist group could start a wider war with this. They were certainly looking for support for that, hoping for that. More Muslim countries attacking Israel. That has not happened. Even Iran is doing it sort of under the, sort of plausible denial, and it's not really openly fighting Israel. Yemen is the only country that has. I'm just thinking that Hamas is increasingly isolated from the Arab world, and that would be a totally good thing.
Yeah, I think so. When you deal with the Arab countries themselves, not the proxies that Iran has in these countries, but the Arab nations themselves, two of them normalize relations, the UAE and Bahrain. They have embassies there, and they both condemned Hamas. Saudi Arabia, while it did not condemn Hamas, I know for a fact, because I've had 3 people that I know have been in Saudi Arabia since October the 7th, and they still intend to normalize relations with Israel. That is terrifically good news. They're going to obviously have to wait a certain amount of time before they do that. But Saudi Arabia looks at Hamas. Then think of the contrast. Hamas is trying to destroy the state of Israel, and Saudi Arabia is trying to have normal relations with it. They're absolutely opposed. You put your finger right on the difference that is happening now with the Arab states. And if Saudi Arabia normalizes relations, then all the other Arab and Muslim states in the region will do the same. Yes, Hamas has overplayed their hand, in my judgment, backed by the Iranians.
Isn't it strange? You've got the disaffected left in your country and in mine, in Britain as well, throughout Europe, giving more comfort and support, in effect, to Hamas than the Arab leaders of the world are doing. I mean, I think that says something about how sick the parts of our culture have become. General Jack Keane, thank you so much indeed for your time.